one. Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
I fell out of my chair at work more times than I probably needed to. And I should have probably recognized by now that, it's something that's an issue. But either which way, we have an awesome show planned for you. Quick reminder, if you have not gone through and liked and subscribed recently, or you have friends that want to, make sure you click that like or subscribe button on YouTube, on your Google Pal. I don't know, it's not called Google Pal, but whatever the Google podcast thing is, or your iTunes account, or if you listen to us on Spreaker, you can, like us right there. Without further ado, though, let's bring in the rest of our co-hosts. Welcome to the show, Mr. Hansel and Mr. Buddy. How are you all tonight?
I'm a little toasted from the weekend.
You look because of the outdoors, or because you got too lit?
No, I was coaching 3 and 4 and 5 and 6-year-old soccer team in the sun and just got toasted. And then I grilled 3 times outside on my charcoal because the family was here for my 3-year-old's birthday. So,
excuse me, but do you not know about propane and propane accessories?
Yeah, and it tastes like dirt and licking a ceramic ball.
This conversation's fast becoming a confrontation.
Yeah, I am full on with my charcoal and the smoky flavorings of deliciousness. We did top round steaks that had been marinated for about 40 hours and did them bun and broil style. My old man brought 3 racks of ribs. We had I have so much food in my refrigerator right now. Everybody ate as much as they could, and I still made way too much. It's the first real weekend of summer in my book.
I would agree with that. I mean, we had kind of the same thing, I was in a tournament on Friday or on Saturday, and then, after that, like halfway through, I wasn't doing real well, and I was like, man, it's nice outside. I'm just going to drop the tournament and go outside for a walk, and then Sunday, I grilled a pork loin and sausages, or not grilled, I'm sorry, smoked the pork loin and sausages and chicken thighs, because that was on sale. Like I should have thought by brisket, but I didn't know it was going to be 80 degrees in Michigan, and it wasn't even warm outside because there was no humidity and there was a wind. So if it was 80, it really didn't feel like 80. So I didn't turn into you, I guess, but I have a little bit of color from not putting enough suntan lotion on Saturday there, or Sunday there.
Yeah, I got to work. A couple of my coworkers said it looked like I got slow roasted for the weekend. I was like, come on, guys. Most of the people I work with are from all over the world. There's so many languages and everything spoken all over my company. And so they're just like, I almost didn't recognize you, pal ass. I have some color. I'm almost see-through from all this time indoors from the pandemic, and then throw in the winter. So yeah, the first inklings of color make me look a little bit less like a jellyfish, I guess.
Jesus. Honestly, it was not an overly productive weekend. I just catching up on a lot of laundry, and still trying to figure out what the hell it was that I did yesterday because I can't think of a damn thing. And then, just taking the cat to the vet to get her last round of her booster shots, because that's important. And then found out today that the Alberta government has finally admitted that teachers who they've decided need to be in work because the economy is the most important thing ever, and kids being in school means parents can go to work, decided that teachers are now allowed to get vaccinated instead of coming out and saying, no, they're in a younger demographic, they're not that dangerous, they're not that high risk, so we're just going to let them be. And it's like, that was dumb. But my wife came home today and was like, as of tomorrow, I get to book in for vaccine. And it's like, well, it's about damn time. So I'm happy that she is. I mean, I wish I were also able to qualify, but I don't. So I am still going to behave and, unlike the domestic terrorists who sit there and get in your face because you're wearing a mask. But, oh well, they can do their thing. And I am just going to keep trying to make sure that I'm doing my part.
Well, that's good. So tonight we have a couple of different topics, and just as a reminder, I was on Corey's show last week, but I don't know if it aired yet. So I'm pretty sure that it's not going to air for another week or two. So he's farther ahead booking shows than we are. So there's that. But whatever. I mean, so I'll let everybody know when it goes live. He did give us permission to use some of the audio. We didn't get through the full portions of the book I wanted to. So we're talking about doing follow-ups and something that could work for that. So we're going to kind of see how that goes and kind of go from there. You get to kind of hear my life story a little bit. So, he went through how I went from conservative Christian to atheist to kind of a liberal to now a socialist. Yep. And we actually talked through what are my political leaning identifiers. Right. And that's kind of a big thing because, like to some extent I'm an anarchist, but am I truly an anarchist? And, how does that whole thing play out? So, so that was a very fun recording last week, and that should be out next week or the week after. And again, we'll let everybody know and promote it on the show. And I'll give like a little sample clip or something like that of the audio that we can kind of use and go from there. Tonight, I have kind of a unique show planned. There's some different topics, but I've been on that socialist kick a little bit more, so you'll have to forgive me. And some of the topics are slated that way a little bit. But there is a CEO named Dan Price who essentially cut his wages and pays minimum wage at $70,000 a year. That just sounds crazy, but that's what he does.
The story happened a couple years ago, I believe.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And the reason it came up in my feed, and I don't know why we didn't cover it a couple years ago, but it came back into my feed.
I think we did, actually.
Did we? I don't remember that.
Yeah, if it was, like a quick thing or something, but I don't know. I know I shared it a few times.
But tonight we're going to go a little bit more in depth because everybody was worried with COVID he would lose all his employees, his business, and now they're back stronger than ever. So we're going to dive into that. We're also going to look at what the government put billions of dollars into the economy for and who's going to benefit. And then there was a unique conversation that I was a part of about cryptocurrency, and a lot of people have been advocating for cryptocurrency as a big, kind of like a big movement type thing, like saying, hey, this could help with socialism, right? Like this could do these different things. But if you understand the basis for what cryptocurrency is, you may not always agree, and you may see some of the faults that it has. So we're going to dig into that. But before we go, we're going to do our infamous segment, Answering Conservative Questions. So tonight's question came from a special group I'm in, and no, this one was not from Reddit. But the question comes to us that says, why can't we end the extended unemployment insurance? There are lots of jobs hiring, and there seems to be, I spelled that wrong. There seems to be 9% unemployment in Michigan. So there are jobs for all these people who want them. And essentially what the person's getting at is the reason people are not going back to work is because unemployment insurance with the COVID pandemic stimulus is putting more money in everybody's pocket. Now, before we go too far, I'm going to pull my phone out. I got my calculator and see if it saved my calculation. But essentially, the calculation I came up with was $16.85 an hour before taxes, is if you're getting the full pandemic thing. Now, I know for a while during the pandemic it was more than that because you were getting $600 additional a week plus your base. So in Michigan, I believe the base is $392. So with your $600, you were getting $992. People do not, at least in Michigan, qualify for $992 a week. Trust me, we know. And it's just because of the stuff we deal with at work and stuff like that as well. So right now, you're only getting the extra $300, so that puts you at $692. And so if you break $692 down, it puts you at $16.85. But let's go back and just do the $992 divided by 40 hours a week. That puts us at $24.80, right? So during the pandemic, when everybody was laid off, the government essentially said, well, you should get almost $25 an hour. And that's what we feel is a decent wage for everybody.
And that was the Republicans who instigated it as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes. That was a Trump administration, you know?
Yeah.
And
Trump administration made minimum wage $25 an hour. Essentially for a pandemic.
Yeah. And so, you know, so I could see that because things could be a little bit different. You're going to have a higher mix of people on unemployment than you did before. Yada, yada, yada. Though, I'll be honest, like, I don't think unemployment spiked over 15% in Michigan last year. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure about that. And essentially, this whole topic came up because somebody complained that Taco Bell was closed in a certain suburb after 8 p.m. And my simple response was, if you pay a living wage, you don't have this issue. You just don't. you don't have an issue. Like, yeah, maybe people don't want to come back to work if they don't have to make shit wages. People are boycotting. There's lots of different things going on here, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to work in food service with people for a minimum wage right now.
No,
like, I don't know too many people that would want to.
Yeah, there's huge amounts of risk. They treat their employees like shit. The majority of them do not offer benefits in any way, shape, or form. And then they expect you to work all the shit hours. So yes, there are some full-time people. I have a friend who actually starts up Taco Bell. That's what he gets paid to do. He gets then paid after they are started up to go inspect them on a regular basis and rate them and stuff like that. He gets a salary. I'll tell you what, though. When he first started that job, it was $35,000 a year was his starting salary. That's his starting salary, to start a Taco Bell up, to train people to implement a program. That's $16.85 an hour that we just talked about. That's what they were paying people to start that shit up. Implementation managers at larger companies get paid upwards between $75, and I Googled this, $75 and $120,000 a year. That's the salary range for a large corporation for implementation manager for a project, or for if you're starting up a new
franchise
division.
Openings and stuff. Yeah.
Think of that.
They don't compensate their employees, and then they complain when they don't have a sizable work staff. Or on the other end of things is that Taco Bell, you know, the reason it was shut down was because they didn't have work, or was it shut down because they shut it down in the evenings because
they didn't
the
have
pandemic?
Employees. No, it was recent. Okay. As of last week, it was still heavy. They don't have enough people to work the shifts. You know. Now, so I'll go first real quick, and then I'll let the two of you chime in, and I won't take too long because I've already voiced my opinion publicly more times than once on this topic. Like, there's a couple of issues here. Nobody is not coming back to work. What they're saying is, give me a livable wage. And some of it might be a slight resistance, right? Could be a slight resistance because of the fact that they don't want to take the risk of coming back during a pandemic. But you cannot just like get laid off and then just stay laid off. If Taco Bell calls you back and you were getting unemployment insurance from them, you have to quit and then you reapply and justify this whole thing. So you have to be. It's not as simple as somebody going, "Oh, I got my unemployment. I'm not going to come back." You know, it does not work like that. And I could tell you again from personal experience from somebody in my family who has gone into unemployment as of November last year, because there's a lot of hurdles and I had to help walk through all these things with people because of that, right? Because it wasn't easy. So the answer to your question, the reason we don't want to end the extended is because we have not gone back to normal. And since we have not gone back to normal, we are sitting inside of a pandemic and literally inside of such a risk bubble that these people deserve to either be paid more money for the risk that they're taking, or we should just raise the minimum wage and then we don't have this issue. Because if unemployment right now is good enough for them to have, it's good enough to have a year ago and the next year. Just my opinion. Anna, you're next.
All right. Well, for me, I just start with one word is India. That's kind of my argument for this entire thing is why shouldn't we just end the extensions for unemployment and everything? If we just open it all willy-nilly, India, that's what they did. They opened willy-nilly. They have vaccines. They make vaccines there. They don't have nearly enough, and their healthcare system is taxed like ours was when we were getting around 100,000 cases a day, and we stopped it. We kept unemployment. We boosted our infrastructure for all of our vaccinations. We kept working on it. We saw a transition of power, and now we hit 200 million in the first 100 days of dosages when we were only expecting to hit 100. Like, we worked on the problem. India opened like these people want to open. They want to just let it go loose. And even if you have vaccines and even if you're working on the problem, it will get away from you. There's way more people, way more densely populated areas in India, but we still were having big problems, even in rural areas. My family's in the county that they are in Michigan, my wife's family. That county had the highest per capita rate of COVID in the entire state of Michigan. It was an incredibly dangerous place to be, and it's rural, man. You can throw a baseball as hard as you can, and you will not hit a house in a lot of that area. It's that far away, and they're still all getting it because they don't care. They don't want to play by the rules. They don't want to make any kind of, sacrifice. The idea of being in a social contract and reaping benefits from the society they live in. I would call them the people who are mooching and off the system. They're basically taking all the good things they want when it comes to what the social safety nets will give you, but when it comes time for them to sacrifice anything and at all, even the smallest thing, they can't be bothered and they can't be held back. So in this case here, the unemployment insurance is another tool we're using to keep people at home and keep certain industries and certain high contact industries down for right now while we're still working on it, because the CDC posted earlier today that the United States will not reach herd immunity in 2021 because of all the resistance to vaccination that we're having right now. We plateaued. All of these areas were doing great for a while, and now all the resistant people are not going in. And so all the ones who are accepting of vaccinations and wanted to get better and wanted to work on, getting rid of the pandemic, they already got their vaccinations. Now all the resistant people are refusing or not getting it done at all. And so we're seeing an uptick in some states and we're seeing vaccination levels drop off. So we won't go back to normal this year. That's basically what most people are thinking of. So that's why I don't think we should end the unemployment insurance. It's helping people stay home. And in some cases, it's actually helping people live a little bit better because they're getting paid a living wage now at $16 an hour, which I kind of like people to stay alive and be COVID free.
Yeah, the whole being alive and healthy thing sounds like, I don't know, a net good. It's weird.
Yeah. Double plus good.
Yes. You speak. we like frontline workers have basically been pawns the entire time. Anybody in public sectors. Now, I say that as a Canadian, so I do mean healthcare and education as well, because we have more public services available. And the same can be said for people who, work at retail places or essential services, such as, businesses that sell food or medications or anything like that. And the people employed by those companies aren't just, mums and dads or single adults or whatever. They're kids, they're seniors. There's this broad spectrum of people who work these jobs and are, they're essentially putting their health on the line. Well, complicating that is the fact that, one, companies think it's bad for business to actually call out domestic terrorists for who they are. And yes, I'm looking at the anti-maskers, and I have no qualms about calling them domestic terrorists, because that's really all they are. They're little more than a childhood bully who grew up and basically thought that he could continue living, intimidating people and terrorizing people into doing what he thought they should do. And that's all there is to it. And these people walk in, they act like they don't need to worry about it, like they don't need to contribute at all, because they get to live off of everybody else's efforts, which is kind of ironic for them to behave that way and then act like the herd is going to carry them. But I'm not going to break my brain over that one. And in all honesty, this is giving us a chance to kind of really show companies just how important life is. I read a great quote the other day on the weekend. So I'm on Quora, which can be hit or miss sometimes. And they were talking about quitting a job, and one of the people who commented said that they were a manager, but during their training, they adopted a philosophy of the worker is more important than the work. And that's kind of stuck with me. And it's something that's probably going to stay with me, because as I've moved up in my company, I'm not just, one of the front end staff, I'm moving up. And it does give people a chance to live stress-free, because as we know, people who are living, with a constant stressor, this constant fear that, maybe they're going to get sick or they're going to get somebody sick around them. And it's somebody who is vulnerable, like their kids, their parents, or even another loved one who's immunocompromised. And it's giving them a chance to live relatively stress-free, because living life that paranoid, that is, you're putting people around you at risk, people you care about at risk, just because you have to go to work. It's giving them the opportunity to live. Yeah, okay, they're probably going to get screwed come tax season, but they get to live right now with their loved ones. They get to spend time with people that they care about. They get to live a life that is not perpetually dealing with this anxiety. And as we all know, prolonged exposure to stress can cause a lot of negative health effects, and make the problem even worse. So we shouldn't, because we need to actually take care of the people who are actually doing the work that makes the money, not just the people who are sitting in an office getting mad that, they don't get to get as big of a bonus. So I think it's kind of a good equalizer, or a good chance to give the people a break.
But Karen wants a chimichanga at 9 p.m.
And I will be the person behind Karen in line to tell her to shove it, because I have no patience for that. I've worked in customer service for far too long to put up with people like that.
So you guys want to say something funny?
Yes.
After this happy conversation, funny is good.
This is funny.
Okay,
funny.
Oh no.
So the FBI is coming over to my house right now. I'm going to record them, and I'll share it. I'll share this. And I'm going to talk about it. Well, guess what, guys? We got a show coming, because they got an anonymous tip that I was at the rally in D.C. that went off the rails. Which, if you follow my work, I was live telling people not to go. And I've been telling people for 2 weeks, don't go. It's a honey trap. It's going to be Charlottesville 2.0. And then after it was over, I said the same exact stuff.
All right. So I'm sorry. Like, it's just funny. I don't know who, like, if that's truly why the FBI are going there. If that's why they're going there. It's funny because he's right. He was. I'm pretty sure he was not there. Like, I'm almost pretty sure he was not there. But it just is hilarious that somebody, like, either the FBI are kind of, like, getting off their game. Like, why would they investigate that guy if he really wasn't there? Or they're just taking all the tips and just want to follow up because it's in an open line on their, pad. And they're going to come to his house and have a conversation about it. And I'm sorry, like, if he sees this, I'm not, like, it's not funny, but it is kind of funny because you speak a lot of garbage sometimes, but then, and the FBI took this seriously, and there you go. And I'll be honest, I never thought about calling in anonymous tips on people. Like, I never thought that was even a thing that people did, I don't know.
I know that there were family members that were turning in their own loved ones. There were people who was like, my dad was there, and I called, like, these people were like, they were getting interviewed and like the Guardian and stuff like that. I turned in my parents and my aunts and my uncles because they all went to the rally, and I just told the FBI they were there. I gave them pictures and they scanned them. Like, there were people turning in their own family members. Yep. I mean, sometimes you have to do something like that. If you know what I mean, like the idea of like red flag laws and stuff like that. Sometimes that's the right thing to do.
It sucks, and
it's yeah.
Like in Alberta, there was a huge thing, at least among the some of the idiots that I know and have made the mistake of continuing to follow on social media. They were talking about apparently one of the government during one of their meetings had mentioned something about, like if you're noticing your neighbors are having large gatherings when they're not, when we're sitting here saying they're not supposed to, contact the police, and people were like, just mind your own damn business. And it's just like,
it's not your business when you could spread something to me.
It's not. This is a public health issue. You don't get to be special treatment just because you can't go, another couple of weeks without seeing someone, and you're fighting this idea that a lockdown might actually help curb the spread instead of half-assed restrictions. But that's I could ramble on about that for hours and hours and hours.
And we think about the time when humans didn't know about the germ theory of disease.
You mean like
still don't
today? Not that I really want to, shit all over our species and go full misanthropy, but
this is one of my favorite sites.
It's a good site.
I know. So this was a topic that was trending a little bit on Reddit this week. And so I thought it'd be a good idea to kind of go through this. They said they did an article that essentially says how the Federal Reserve is increasing wealth inequity. And I was like,
100%.
Okay, hold on a second. Like I get we pumped money and we bailed out, Ford and all these other companies. We did all these other things. And actually, wouldn't it have been better instead of bailing Ford out to give unemployment money up to people's base salary, to every person that would have lost their job, and let Ford go under?
And every bank that
would have done more for the economy,
wanted to recall someone's mortgage and try to foreclose on their house, that the house should have just been paid off instead of giving the bank money. That's what Ireland did, and they saw their recession end in half the time the United States did.
Yeah. I don't know. Whatever. I just, that was an interesting thought that kind of came from this discussion.
Yeah, right now, Jerome Powell and the Fed is keeping interest rates low. I'm sure they'll touch about this. That's just one of the things that drives me crazy. Yeah.
So essentially, they talk about why we've got ultra low interest rates, why people are going on bond buying sprees, and they believe the long-stemming inequality in the U.S. has been exacerbated by the Fed's role in touching off a multi-trillion-dollar boom in stock market, right? And we all know stock markets are genuinely owned by
Like 7
Not
people.
Keith.
Rich-
Hannah.
really rich people.
There you go. You know, now I own some stocks, but not a lot. Like I sell my stocks on worth, you know, nothing. Like whatever. If you killed me for my stock portfolio, you messed up. I ain't got that much money. So, but you know, they
Index
have
index funds forever.
but those people that had the income and CEOs and when companies were doing well could do buybacks, they could do all these other things where they were essentially being able to buy up and create wealth within their own organization. So essentially what they do is man,
They have tuberculosis.
I guess, yeah. That's what it feels like. It's that time of the year with all the stupid allergies. I get allergies really bad.
Yeah, my house is coated in pollen right now.
Ooh, I'd hate your house.
Yeah, outside, like the cars are slightly orange.
Wow.
If you like overnight, they're just coated in pollen. It's crazy. But yeah, basically ProPublica is talking the structure and the things that the Fed does with its trying to maintain interest at around 2% and trying to keep, you know, because they say essentially that the interest rates that the Fed can set for the rates that banks can borrow from the federal from the federales, that rate being really, really low is like a gas pedal for the economy. Essentially, they say that it'll cause inflation, so they'll help boost inflation to around 2%. Then when inflation gets too high, they can lower the rate. But the thing is it's been zero for so long that we basically have a wide open economy. And part of the problem with that is that only a few people can really benefit from the rates being low like they are. And those few people are usually dealing with money speculation and stocks, and then using the infrastructure that we've built. The fact that our economy is over 90% based in Wall Street and financial swindling versus manufacturing anymore. And I mean, it's even less in information and the service industry. So that's probably where they're going in with this one.
Yeah, and they have an example where somebody making $25,000 a year essentially was able to purchase some stocks, get all this other things, and was able to use a lot of the stimulus money to increase her wealth, right? And she was reluctant to invest in the stock market because she was worried to be volatile, right? And so she put it in a near zero interest rate at 0.5%.
Oh, CD.
So, yeah. And so her money is now officially tied up. You can't get that 11 grand back. And she's going to earn less than $60 a year for that. So I'll tell you what, you could probably sell blood twice a month and make $60. Pretty sure you can. Maybe 3 times. I don't know.
Well, they have interest. The interest rate on credit for credit unions right now for keeping your money in a checking account at Lake Michigan Credit Union is 3% annual interest rate. If you keep up to $15,000, if you keep $15,000 in your Lake Michigan Credit Union checking account and just leave it there, you will make almost $500 a year just for letting your money sit there. You have to get in there and you have to open up the accounts and, you know, pay for a certain number of times a month or whatever. It's basically use the account, use your card, but it's not hard to hit that by any means, and you'll make 3%. I every year regularly make around $200 to $300 from just the money staying in my Lake Michigan credit account. There are other companies that are doing this. Well, I saw one that had a 4% rate. So like there's a bunch of things that you can do that are not that weird CD, really super low stuff. But in the end, like what we're doing and what we're talking about as far as that kind of money is, you know, like, oh, a little bit of interest and make a little bit of money. Like people like Jeff Bezos make $11 million, $10 million an hour.
Yeah.
It's not even comparable to be like, oh, we can finally put some money in our retirement fund. Like the amounts of money that the people are able to get and boost with the low programs that the Fed offers, it's staggering.
Yes, and because if you are wealthy or have the availability to wealth, when we hit these low interest rates, right,
Mhm.
people can spend more money. I'm not that wealthy. So in my world, like for me as an individual, even if I didn't spend my stimulus money, I was literally able to, I wouldn't have literally been able to buy more than whatever the first stimulus we got was, like $7,000 or $5,000 or whatever it was.
$5,000.
So I wouldn't have been able to do any more than that because that was just liquid cash. I still was employed. I still was able to work. You know, my wife was still working because she worked in healthcare. So like we were still working, and like, so we didn't take any of the unemployment. But even $5,000, I'm not going to get that much more back. I will get more than putting in a low interest CD, but I'm not going to get a ton of money back. Whereas somebody that has, let's say, $100,000 of capital in a low yields gain stocks can dump that into high yield gain stocks in a market and make or probably not millions, but hundreds of thousands of dollars on it. You know, if the market's up 13%, you dump 200,000 in there, you're bringing back 40, 50 grand. Then you can just move it all back and reallocate your funds. You know, and that's how the stock market, you know, that's how some people play it. I'm not very good at it. I have all my stuff set up. Like, mine manages it itself. And I will say, you know, my return, my overall return went from 3.5% to 6% for the year. So, you know, like, I did see almost a double return rate, but I don't have $400,000 in stocks right now. That I'm able
to really
to do
yeah.
anything with.
Yeah, it's not something that when the market goes up, if you double or triple your money, you're not looking at like, well, I guess I can retire now. Like in certain cases, when they're talking about people doing shorts or whatever, like they would quadruple their money, but the amount of money they're putting in, you know, $3, $4, $5 million and turning into 25. That's a game changer in some cases. Another thing that this the Fed does when it keeps the interest rates really low is it changes the way corporations work. So if interest rates are really, really high, and the cost to borrow is really high, and corporate taxes are high, instead of taking the money and sucking it out of the company, it's actually better. You'll pay less taxes if you invest in the company, you invest in infrastructure, you build things, you grow your company, you hire people. So when the interest rates are really high and when the tax rates are high, it's better to spend that money in the company, on the people, to keep that money moving, as opposed to when it's super low, there's no cost if you just call it profit and then you can just pocket it. And so one of the things that they see in major large corporations when they play their tax game correctly is that when the interest rates are low and the taxes are low, it's really easy for them to take all of that profit, all of that productivity that's been gained, and just take it, and they drain the finances from the company, and instead of when we have high taxes and we have high interest rates, they have to invest it back into the company and eventually find a way to get it out then. But it's one of the issues that they think if we could keep the interest rates high and we could boost the corporate tax rate, it forces these people to put the money into the company instead of just suck it out and put it into their own personal stashes. And that's better for the workers, and it's better for the infrastructure, all these infrastructure plans and stuff like that. They want private businesses to do it. Well, you need to incentivize private businesses to do it, because right now it's incentivized to just take money out of large corporations and put them in your own pocket. But if you're going to tax the heck out of it, unless they use it inside the company, then you'll start seeing them build infrastructure again. So this is another thing that the Fed is doing that hurts all of the workers, and it benefits people at the very top. They're able to do this stuff, all this financial wizardry.
Yep. Another thing was house prices, because the home interest rate to get a loan is so low right now, people can buy. This article says that 10%, the wealthiest 10% own 45% of real estate in the United States. That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
That's insane. And that means there's
Landlords.
lots of people having to rent. People have to do that. Nobody can argue with cost increases and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
and how do you win a bidding war with a person who has 65 houses and you're trying to buy your first one?
You don't, because they have capital. And that's the thing. Like, I have a friend who's a realtor, and like he's had, even during COVID, had his best year because there's that many people buying. Well, who does that benefit? Is going to benefit the wealthy or the higher end people, right? So think about it. Even if you're mid class, if you make $100K a year, you're not getting a house for a family for under $250 right now. Nowhere. In Zealand,
If there is a house that's around that price, it's gone in 30 seconds.
Yep.
It's crazy.
They are
They're waiving inspections now. Like,
That's a bad idea.
isn't it? Oh my.
Yeah. Well, and I've had people offer to buy my house.
Mhm.
You know, it's like, well, you don't want to see the current condition. They're like, we don't care. And they're like, we'll offer
Get
you
those letters.
20% over market value. No, I had
Straight
people,
cash,
like,
too.
come to my house. Yeah, they're like, yeah, we'll give you 20% off over market value. It's like, well, okay, so that's great. And even if I can negotiate 30% or whatever, now
Where do you go?
Now you got to tell me, yeah, where am I going to go live? Right? Well, how am I going to buy another house? And like, I could buy a similar type house, you know, because I will get more equity for my house per se, just because of my circumstances. But at the exact same time, most people aren't going to get that. So you're going to sell your house, and unless you've been investing into your house like some people do for a long time, you're going to get screwed because you're so if you a $150,000 house, if you paid 50% of that off, that's only $75K. You could get your 250 to 300 for that probably, and then you're going to turn around and have to buy another $300,000 house or more, and you're only going to take $75K plus whatever some of the profit over top of your loan is. So you get that $75K plus whatever the profit over your loan is, and to put into the next house. But the ratio divide doesn't happen. So when the stock market starts to crash last year because of COVID, what did they want to do? Inject money into the system. And I didn't know this, but essentially their part of the reason was because of the housing. They did not want another housing crisis like we had in 08.
Yeah,
Was
so
it 08 or 07?
unemployment extensions to keep people financially viable enough to at least make their mortgage payments. The argument that we had earlier, do you really want to make people start foreclosing on houses all over again? That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah. Now, let's think about this. We all got our stimulus, right? From Mr. Biden. He gave us the stimulus. We get to use it. We can drive the economy up. But that doesn't reduce anything. So you're giving more people money, so they will be able to spend a little bit more money than they had before. But what you tell me now, again, if you were given $4,200 like this lady was, that $4,200 is not going to do very well to get her a house or a down payment when your down payments are going up because your house costs are going up. You know, there's nothing for that.
Well, your rental cost is $1,600 a month.
Yeah.
That's going to get you, that'll get you 3 months and some food. My mortgage, just my mortgage. That's 2 months of my mortgage, and it's gone. Like, it's just so like the idea that this is something that people could take and then just live off of is very different than some of the financial trickery that some of the people who have a lot of money can easily absorb any kind of capital losses and make investments when the market is down, and then they profit off those investments when the market goes back up. That's, making your money make money. Because when people talk about houses being a great investment, a house is really only the great investment when you sell high, way towards the end of your stuff. Now, if you have an investment house, you buy low and sell high, then you're making money on that. But if you're living in the house, you sell high, you buy high when you go to a new place. And so there's really no benefit to the person when that's your primary residence. Yeah.
And they're talking about what's happening right now in terms of where they're spending their money. People are, the federal government's taking IOUs, all these other things. And, when we talk about fiscal conservatism, and I will tell you that I am a fiscal conservative when it comes to pocketing rich people's or lining rich people's pockets. I am not when it comes to helping create equity amongst, all the citizens. But this IOUs, this huge debt, is because all they don't want to do is run into that financial crisis again. But they're not enforcing other people, the rich people or the rich companies, to reinvest that money. They're just not. And like, it's funny because if we could have predicted this, we could have started a shipping line and shipped containers from China to America. Like, if we had, let's say, $500 million, we would be insanely rich right now. Like, your company, like, the container costs right now for shipping containers in are over $10,000 on average for a 40-foot container of shit
It goes up.
coming in.
It goes up even more when the boat goes sideways in the shipping. Right?
All right. Yes. Or when Egypt is trying to hold that boat and bill $900 million back to the steamship line and say, you guys owe us money because we lost this income during this time period. But it's crazy, right? That's crazy because if you're rich, you're able to do this. And a lot of people just are not able to create this financial upswing from it. You know,
Well, part of the argument that Jerome Powell is making, and Janet Yellen, who they just mentioned in here, she's now the Treasury Secretary, and she is making an argument very, very close to modern monetary theory. This is something that I'm still reading through some stuff. I'm still trying to get my head completely around it before I want to bring a segment of it onto the show. But right now, we're basically living in this amazingly realistic live experiment on what modern monetary theory essentially says is that your economy can absorb a certain amount of money, just absorb it. And if you dump money in for whatever you need, as long as it's not too much money, when the economy will start to refuse it, then you'll see inflation. So we've been seeing all these trillions of dollars pumped into the economy. What's happening with inflation right now? It's just not moving at all. I mean, a little bit here and there, but not anywhere near what all these fiscal conservative and Republicans think is going to happen if the government starts spending money and starts running up the debt. Oh my God, inflation is going to be going so crazy. It's going to be $35 for a head of lettuce. Well, go to the bank or go to the grocery store. I mean, milk's gone up a bit, but it's we're looking at, I think they said something like 50% increase in general produce and things like that. But the planet hasn't gone crazy, and there's some pretty cool things that have been happening financially. So like, I don't know. We'll see what Janet Yellen gets anything through, and see if we can finally steamroll Jerome Powell out of the Trump fiscal conservative whatever. Because I mean, of course he's going to do that. He was appointed by a guy who loves big business and low interest rates and low taxes. And so that's what he's going to do.
Yep. And the whole point of this article was really not to say whether the Fed was right or wrong in putting money into the economy and saving people's lives and jobs. The difference is there should have been a way for them to actually enforce companies to give it back. You know, I mean, the PPP loans did work like that. But if your boss got one and you were making less money than you would make on unemployment, it didn't work. So if you had employees making $10 an hour or less, they could just make more money on unemployment than they could through the PPP. And in the long run, what they did is they said, well, we're going to allow that business to take this money and float it. And as long as they don't lay people off, they could keep the money and pay it back at no interest. You know, we'll see if
as long as they
Biden
pay it
upholds
back,
that.
yeah.
I don't know if they will or not, but but all that does by keeping interest rates low is make it harder for people in the middle class and down to actually afford and invest in anything. That's the point of this. It's not that I care that they pump money back into companies or into the economy, but because of the pure fact that there, A, was not any constraints on it, and B, the fact that they should have allowed some of the interest rates to go up to stop some of these issues that we're seeing with the housing market being 20% or more overpriced, and how we're seeing the fact that if you have a savings or all these other things, you can invest, but if you don't, nobody else can.
So you should buy GameStop stocks. Is that what you're saying?
No, not anymore. I don't know. Has it gone up?
No, it's been hovering hard. I mean, if anything, you should buy Bitcoin 6 months ago. But
Well, we're going to talk about that. I don't know. You want to talk about that next? Are you trying to segue us, Hannah?
it says Bitcoin on the bottom of the screen, so I kind of figured that's where you wanted to go.
Yeah, we can go to Bitcoin next. Good segue. I ruined it for you. So
GameStop. That's still super high.
yeah, it's still high.
$160 a
But if
share.
you bought in at $190, you just lost $30 a share. You know. And as you can see, it starts high and continues to go low. We'll do 5. Well, let's go for the 1 month. You can see it was at 190 and it's never recovered. It's never ever recovered since then. And if you go back, obviously 6 months, you could see where, it was $17.
All I know is that like a bunch of the people. So you said you bought it at 190. Well, if somebody bought in at 190, they bought $300 worth, and they're just gonna sit on it forever, hopefully, because those guys that lost billions of dollars in the short, like, I hope they just never, I hope they never recover. I hope a whole bunch of dudes on Reddit spending $250 and $300 a pop that just melted a bunch of Jaguars into tears of sadness on Wall Street. I'll take that all day long.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a good way to spend your $300.
That whole mess to me, the fact that there aren't more of the whole, free market type advocates hopping onto that and being like, no, this should have been allowed in a free market. You billionaires are making it harder to get there. That's not the spirit of what we're trying to fight for, but they don't have integrity enough to do something like that. So,
Taggarty.
Yeah.
Taggarty.
What a fun word.
What is the thing that when he's like in the Wall Street, Wolf of Wall Street? Yeah.
I was going for South Park, but we'll take the Wolf on Wall Street, I guess. Anyway, so cryptocurrency, good or bad? So before we get into this topic, because I don't think you read the 7 articles I have posted, do you believe cryptocurrency is good or bad for the economy? And does it associate closer with socialism or capitalism? Buddy, you go first.
I think that it is neither good nor bad. I think it's not without its flaws, but I think it would be an interesting way to basically take one look at the market and be like, okay, but now we're going to go over here now. So all of a sudden, a lot of the big players in the market are sitting there going, what the fuck? Trying to figure out what to do. I think, I don't know if I would say it's going to lead towards socialism. I think if anything, it would lead to more capitalism, but I think it's also a product of capitalism. So there is that as well. I don't see how it would take us to socialism, but I've been wrong about most things. So
you are from Canada.
It's true. It's true.
All right, Hannah, your thoughts.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, humans have been wrong about almost everything, almost the whole time. But Bitcoin is good. It's definitely good, without question. It is like the physical embodiment in the world, if anything could be, because it's digital, but of chaotic good. So this is essentially the idea and the philosophy of altruistic good, altruistic finance. Essentially, is what Bitcoin is. It's the idea that information is completely and totally readily available for everyone. Everyone has access to it, and that's what mining and everything is for the ledger. If that is the case, then that's the chaotic portion, meaning that it's kind of for everyone, and it's just like, will it be the altruistic thing that it was designed to be, to give people that kind of freedom? But then the idea that it could lead to socialism or capitalism, I think it's going to lead to capitalism. The reason being is because the capitalists are already taking it over, and once they own all the Bitcoin, and then they just let people use services like all these little services that are selling and buying Bitcoin. In the end, people who have tons of money who are willing to convert it into Bitcoin will then own all the Bitcoin, and then it just becomes an asset that some rich people own that everybody else like us gets to use when we want to spend some money and use it. It's going to lose its initial value because it didn't have any checks and balances set aside for a hostile financial takeover.
So let's look real quick.
What a terrible picture.
Yeah,
it's a bad angle.
That's perfect.
From
That's a
the
perfect
Foundation of Economic Freedom. Do you know what that webpage is?
I'm not familiar with it.
This is the libertarian Bible that they go to when they want to.
Oh God, that explains the pop-up.
What?
Sorry, I got the most awkward pop-up, and the guy on it, he looked like every awkward kid who threatened to have his dad sue somebody.
All right.
So-
cool. I guess
I find it funny that the
pop up.
libertarians have named their website "fee," as in you're being charged a fee.
That's kind of funny.
They
too.
do not understand irony.
That's
Anyway,
kind of what
so
it is.
essentially, the libertarian perspective is they believe that Bitcoin will smash socialism, right? Because technically
Okay.
Venezuela is really socialist, so blah, 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 blah. So what they talk about is the fact that Venezuela is in a crisis and most people are hurting, right? So they do talk through the economic crash that Venezuela had and why they turned to cryptocurrency to survive. So Venezuelan turns to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, and they can be purchased digitally through P2P, which essentially codes you from being known what it is. And we're going to get to the libertarian wet dream in a minute, because when you can't trace where your money goes, it's really hard to force you to pay more taxes on something, that could just disappear and is coded to only you. But before we get to their proverbial wet dream, here we have the fact that because they're digitally converting it into foreign bank accounts, the advantages that they claim they're getting, right, is that cryptocurrencies have been rising, hence they're making more money. They're using that money then to buy shit they need, hence helping them basically remove themselves out of the economic downslide, right? So now merchants are
makes sense.
using it. A lot of other people are creating currency exchanges for them. And they have Megasoft, I guess, is a point-of-sale terminal that accepts Bitcoin, which I did not know because I don't own Bitcoin at all. So think of it this way. Okay, is this the pop-up you got, buddy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I did not get this, so...
Yeah,
Sorry.
and they
Hi
really
there.
I'm sorry, but as libertarians, do you not think that they would have understood that they could have taken a better picture of that guy instead of just sneaking up behind him and going, "Smile"?
No, it's
Have you ever
Venezuela.
seen
They're
that? The
socialists, right?
billboards that are like that? You're like, oh, how did that get up there?
So, essentially, the positive of Bitcoin, they claim, is it's providing citizens a way to engage in commerce without government interference. Hence, the libertarian wet dream. This right here is like, this is libertarians just salivating at the fact that they don't have to deal with the government anymore,
It's a financial Silk Road. It's a dark web for money.
And while I don't really want to go into and tackle that piece of it right now, because like this article points out, it does create a black market for certain types of trades that probably shouldn't happen at all. But I don't really want to go down that road per se, because that's not what they're using it for in Venezuela. They're not using it so they can just traffic a bunch of drugs into the United States. That's not how this works, And
I'm sure some
essentially-
of them are.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever. Fine. But essentially, the Venezuelan government is now backing cryptocurrency, right? And they are using it for trade. So it appears that they're basically buying in and replacing the profits they had from their oil industry now with Bitcoin industry profits.
Yeah,
That's crazy, right?
I feel
Well,
like
the thing-
as an Albertan, I should really pay attention then.
They tried to force everyone to use the bolivar, whatever their money is that they have in Venezuela, and it's worth nothing. It reminds me of World War or pre-World War II inflation in Germany, where people used to take a wheelbarrow full of money to buy a loaf of bread. Like, inflation was just crazy, and so you couldn't carry enough money to buy something of value in Venezuela. That's how inflated it was. And so this is basically taking this outside the system financial market. It's allowing people to use that, which is great. And it's just another nail in the coffin, as the libertarians would love to say, for socialism. But the things that killed this country that weren't directly tied to socialism, they were the fact that they didn't diversify their economy, and now they they're eating everything, which is funny because if this economy and this government puts all of its money into something like Bitcoin right now, when it's really high and something happens, because it's kind of hard to think of a sustainable $50,000 unit, especially when the halving happens. And I don't know if any of these clowns even know what that is. I don't know if you know what the halving is. Essentially, they double the number of Bitcoins. So all your Bitcoins are worth half as much.
Yep.
There are
It's like
some things
splitting
built into the
stocks, but
system.
not quite.
But yeah, so like there's all kinds of things. So if something like that came in, spooked everybody out, blew up the thing, next thing you know, Venezuela has another crash because they put all their money into something else. It's just
So to begin with, let's be, and I agree with you. I don't think we need to the whole point of this conversation was to not actually dive into and spend 30 minutes discussing why it's going to break their socialism.
No.
I don't care. That your comment's great, and that's great. We got it out of the way. We don't have to keep doing it because I really don't like. I knew that was going to come up, which is good. It came up because now we can just say, "Hey, there you go. You can go back to 57 minutes in the show every time," and Hannah gives you his 3-minute spiel about why it's not really a socialist country, and we can move on because everybody says that, and it's so irritating to debunk all the time. I hate doing it. But one of the theories is that your privacy. So a libertarian wet dream. So damn it, I hate pop-up. I gotta fix my computer. So essentially, if you think about it, they talk through what truly is private. Private coins are a reaction to the retaliation that Bitcoin isn't actually private at all. So they're now trying to come up with
transparent.
A
That's the whole point.
Yeah. They're coming out with a whole different way to privatize it. So the libertarian myth, that little wet dream where it's not traceable, is 100% false. And again, we still haven't even gotten to whether it helps or breaks socialism, whether it's good or bad. It does create a transparency to some extent that allows, people to know what you're doing. Which is probably good if you're using it to buy, children online, or I don't know what else. I don't know what illegal people
Don't buy
online,
children
I
on
guess.
Silk Road. They're so chewy.
Yeah, the new atheist babies, or the atheist baby market. That one, they stopped. What was it? The Germans that busted some 400,000 person pedo ring the other day, and that was all kinds of dark web and cryptocurrency spending stuff. So they're able to find you. They're able to keep track of things. If you think about it, the ledger is so complex now. It's a crazy trail. But the benefit of this is that every single Bitcoin and every piece of every Bitcoin is recorded. And so if you know how to read that information, and I guarantee you, if you look at it the right way, you can find who's got what. If you know the crazy single number, 30-something, 50-something long number, that is your identifying marker for your Bitcoin wallet. If you know how to track that, you teach computer algorithms or whatever, you can learn things and you can track things, which is, I guarantee you, how they keep track of people doing things online currently as in the information world. So I don't know. It's the idea that the ledger is transparent is good, but it's not going to give you the kind of security that people think it is, because it's complex, but that doesn't mean secure.
So now let's talk a little bit about whether it's good from a socialist perspective or more of a capitalist perspective, right? Which is better? So this article was written last year by Yiv Smith. Okay, that's not. It's got to be whatever his other last name is. It does say Yiv Smith. I didn't make that up. But essentially, what they're doing is they're talking about in here. Is this a good idea if we want to become more progressive as a country, right? So this guy writes an open letter to Bitcoin Magazine, which, by the way, I did not know existed until I read this article. So there's that. In his reply below, he essentially wants to address, different sorts of perspectives on whether it's good for the economy or not, right? And he says, Bitcoin has an alternative fiat money that is either likely or indeed desirable under a current capitalistic predicament. If you read open letters, you'll understand why he's essentially anti-capitalism, which, is fair, right? So 2 propositions that support this is Bitcoin, where under presently existing capitalism to replace fiat money, it would lack the mechanism necessary to stop capitalist cries from yielding depressions that benefit only the ultra-right. And its community-based demographic protocols would do little to democratize economic life.
Yeah.
So this is where he's talking about, these are some of the 2 issues he sees with this. So essentially, Bitcoin lacks the shock absorbers necessary to prevent capitalism cries from undoing untold damage to the working class. And it goes back to your example, Hannah, of, well, they could just split a Bitcoin, right? So you could be getting paid 100,000 Bitcoins a year, and they split it, and now your Bitcoins are worth 50,000 a year.
Yeah, it's built into the system that there will only be 22 million, I believe it is, Bitcoins. That's the end. There will never be any more. The Yoshi guy, I think his name was, that created Bitcoin, who is like weirdly vaporized, disappeared, has not really taken control of this stuff. Like, they created it as like a system, but it doesn't have a series and system of checks and balances in it. So like when I mentioned earlier for chaotic good, I just looked that up really quick. It's the philosophy that goodness is best achieved through freedom of individuals to act independently. It's a philosophy of altruistic individualism. So that's the theory behind libertarianism, is essentially that people will do the right thing if you give them the most freedom. But what we find is people act more so like the state of nature in a basic capitalist society, is they absorb and they take as much as they can, and it turns into a dog-eat-dog drive to the middle, where you see an aggregation and basically a coagulation of wealth. And Bitcoin, like I said earlier, it doesn't have anything in it to stop that hostile takeover or from somebody spooking the system to make it drop or climb a super large amount for whatever, you know what I mean? Like, is there an insider trading thing in Bitcoin where like, hey, I heard somebody who's really important is going to be buying in Elon Musk. We're going to be buying into our corporation, and we know Bitcoin is going to be a major part of their future. And someone says, I'm going to do this. Hey, did you hear about Elon? So like a bunch of your friends, it's all go buy because you know this huge buy is coming. Where's the regulation that keeps you from spiking the system because you have information that a bunch of other people didn't have? Those kinds of things are, there's no rails or gutter in the system to help protect people. And so the idea that everybody will be altruistic is fine and great, but I've never seen a functioning economy that was capitalism based where that actually happened.
And they talk about the unequal ownership of Bitcoin. We already have issues with inequity inside of the United States as it is with wealth. This is just going to further propagate it. The next proposition he has is that Bitcoin's dominance will not democratize economic life or give socialism a chance, right? And that kind of goes to, if there's a finite amount of Bitcoin, it is not going to do the country or do anything or do anyone any good, because of the fact that it's going to allow for people who have the higher amount of money to force decisions. Because, and again, you picked on Elon Musk, I'll pick on Jeff Bezos. If he decided to invest his money into Bitcoin and he bought enough Bitcoin, he controlled 51% of the shares. If our economy ran on Bitcoin, can you imagine what we'd be doing? We'd be all working 12 hours a day with no pee breaks. Lunch would be a pill we took, and he would figure out how we could get exercise while we stood there to make sure we're getting our physical fitness while making him even more money. And we're on the other end just continuing to consume. And there's a Black Mirror episode. I can't remember if it's season 1 or season 2, but there's a whole Black Mirror episode that talks about this. Not Bitcoin, but they talk about this inequality when you change over your currency structure and what goes on, right?
It was the one where It was the one where the the redheaded girl, the woman who where social structure was all based on internet points, and she lost her points and she basically got put in jail at the end of it because everything went bad. Is that the one?
No.
No,
No.
right. Yeah, it's Ron Howard's daughter. Anyways, yeah, no, it definitely sounds like a Black Mirror episode though, but
Yeah, because
I don't know.
essentially what they had happen, Hannah, in that episode is they actually had where you were living in these different things, and what you could do is try to earn money and points by exercising, by riding your bike, and by doing
that's
that.
Second season.
Yes,
Yeah.
to try to get out of
And
it.
when you close your eyes and you're not looking at the commercial, they stop and they wait for
Yep.
you, like, please open your eyes.
And you had to pay to do that, and so that goes a little bit farther. But that goes right to it saying, if a lot of the money is owned by politicians, bankers, network bosses, all that different type of thing, we're not going to see an income equality. So just this right here lends to, for me to say, not only is Bitcoin capitalistic, but it is also closer to evil than it is to good. It's not, I don't even consider it a chaos good personally. Now, let's go even farther, right? So now if we go farther down that bunny trail, how do you get Bitcoin? You got to mine for it. So when you first started mining for Bitcoin, it wasn't that big of a deal because it was there. It didn't use a lot of computer resources, but as it became more scarce, you had to mine more of it. So think of what that did to the environment. It got to the point where essentially people were mining Bitcoin because they believe in the chance to have economic freedom plus not be traced, but they're just generating pollution. And somebody on Twitter called Organic Cop Puncher, essentially he says this is literally like an 8-year-old's concept of a villain. Bitcoin is nothing more than an evil villain for Captain Planet. And somebody should make the shit out of that show, whoever owns the rights to that, and just give us
my God.
At least with the current computing methods and resources necessary, it's definitely using so much energy and so much electricity, and the computing power necessary is leaps and bounds past standard home PCs that people would link together to try to stack their CPUs. Now people have full-on server towers in their homes, blades and blades, and they're just burning through electricity. It's become a problem, and part of the other issue is there's so many people doing it. So when people are working on a specific mining solution, when they find the solution, it's the first person who gets to it. That's the person who gets it. So you could be mining on a bunch of really complex things, burning up all this energy, and someone beats you to it. All that energy and all that time that was just expended disappears, and you start over on another one that hasn't been solved yet. And so it's hard and harder and harder and harder. The ledger is getting way more complex and way bigger because all the transactions. So there's a lot of specific things out there that have to be proven. But I mean, it's just nasty. And again, this is another area where someone who has tons of money and resources, they're the ones that can mine this stuff, right? I mean, think about it. Like, the average person can't do it anymore. So it's already been taken over essentially by a capitalistic regime. It's a hostile takeover, and there's no really good way to bring it back. Now, what it is a few people have a ton of it, and they'll divvy out little crumbs to people. And so I honestly don't think it's going to be any kind of world game changer. I think it'll just be something that we get forced into because it'll just become infrastructure for something. I don't know if it'll be like the evolution of what PayPal would have become, being able to digitize everybody's credit cards so you could pay online and all that kind of stuff. And everybody started being able to pay online and have a secure system. Is Bitcoin the next level of that? And we'll all just have a Bitcoin card, and it'll just be this global currency. I don't know. I just don't think there's going to be any kind of equalizer for any major boost to poor people, and it's not going to go out and slap really rich people. It'll just be another thing that rich people own and poor people use.
Yeah. And there's just so many bad things for it. We no longer can justify your answer, Hannah, of chaotic good. It is now.
Well, that's what its philosophy. The guy that created it, that's what he wanted it to be, and it's been taken over.
Yeah, it's nothing like anything that we could have ever really imagined, other than it's a capitalist dream on how to make more money and control things without having
It's
to
a
vote.
financial state of nature, and it's been perverted.
Exactly. And what'll happen is cryptocurrency will create larger inflations than we've ever seen if we continue to let it go on. You know,
Dogecoin.
Yes.
Dogecoin. Is that what you said?
Doge.
And so, you know, do we
Such-
really
such
need
currency. Very
another
money. Wow.
replacement for gold? It's just all this stuff is fake anyway. All
Mhm.
money to some extent is just what you're willing to use it for, what it's backed with. And at some point, you know, like we could all be trading fishes and goats. And, you know, like
I was just say,
fix my house up, and I know how to grow really good weed, and I'd be able to, you know, fund his weed habit and that type of stuff. So, you know, anyway, it's just it's not where we should be going.
I want to own my
shape, or
labor.
form.
I want more people to own their labor. That's what I want.
In a perfect world.
So, with that being said, let's talk a little bit about a CEO who decided to cut his salary and give everybody a minimum of $70,000 a year. Dan Price from Gravity Payments. So I don't know, did any of you, either of you, know what Gravity Payments are?
I looked into it a little while ago because Boyce at one point had mentioned Dan Price, and some of the challenges around Dan Price as a human being. But that aside,
That's aside for now.
That aside, yeah, I had kind of looked a little bit into it, but apparently I didn't retain a damn thing because I'm sitting here going, I remember reading, and I should have probably retained it because I work at an online payment company, and it sounds like that's what he works or what he does. And
I heard financial tech startup. My eyes glazed over because it had something to do with processing credit cards or something. And so it's just like, cool. It's a nice guy and a good company to work for. That's just inside the financial system.
So
That's all I
essentially
know.
what they do is they collect payments from companies, and they charge a lower fee than what some of the other companies are charging to process the transaction and relate it back to the banks. That's in a nutshell, that's really what it is.
They're a middleman.
Yep.
Absorbing money.
So essentially, that's who this guy is. He's one of the founders. Him and his brother started this business. Oh, it was probably out of high school, right out of high school. I think in the early 2000s is when he started. Him and his brother started this. And now they have 120 employees, and everybody gets paid $70,000 a year. Everybody.
To start.
That's your starting pay is $70,000 a year, which sounds good to me.
Yeah.
So essentially, he's made the news before. People didn't think this was going to work, but what this is telling you is this is truly what can happen when companies give back. Now, he did have to liquidate a lot of his assets. He had to cut his salary to transition there. And all of this started because somebody in working for him complained that they make $35,000 a year and they don't have a way to continue to live, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially being in Silicon Valley or something like that's not enough money to rent anything. I'm not certain where they are. Are they in Seattle or Silicon Valley? I'm not certain, but
I'll look it up in a minute. I'll be honest, I don't know. So he was scared because he was worried about all of the issues that he would say. So essentially, he cut his own salary as part of the funds. He started liquidating stocks that he owned of his own company and started, changing who he paid and what he did. Now, he didn't do it all right away either, right? It was a build-up plan to that. But they were getting all sorts of people applying for jobs. Everybody wanted to, interview him. People wanted to work for him. And, people were calling him the Robin Hood. I'm with Dan, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But it makes sense because if the company can still make large profits, and that's the whole point of the segment really is, Buddy's right. The guy essentially has been accused of being abusive to his wife. He's also been accused of hiding things and stealing from his own company before as well, according to his brother. Now that lawsuit was settled out of court, and I think the lawsuit was closed. I don't think there was any payment out of there. So, and his ex-wife's issue is very real. And so the idea is not to really focus on him as an individual, right? It's to go
this is a
kind of
business plan that we're talking about.
What is this business plan? How does it work? And if you have, I'm just gonna say, so if you have 120 employees, right? And so 120 employees times 70 grand a year, you're looking at $8.4 million in salary, in the baseline salary. Then you got to pay your employment tax, and you're gonna have to pay your insurance taxes, and you're gonna have to pay all these other things. So usually you add 25% to that. Like in my industry, it's like at 25%. So you're looking at $10.5 million total is what he's shelling out for that. Now, if you have liquid assets of $10.5 million and you can draw down here to pay out here, your company's actually not taking on any more expense, right? And so this is nothing new. This is just, again, if you were investing $1 million in technology every year, you turn around and you bring that down to $300,000 because you finish your technology, then what you're doing is just paying yourself back for your investment, right? And
it's investing in the company and the people.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about.
He never had to take a loan out to do this. That's the big thing. There's no loan. There's nothing. There is no borrowed assets. Nothing like that. And
so the question is it a viable? It's a viable system then. He did this, and it's been a few years now. So I mean, obviously, it didn't like everyone shouted and yelled out, "This is going to burn the system down, overpaying everyone," or whatever. I looked it up. The company is in Seattle, Washington. Their housing expenses are 94% higher than national average. It says that you should make at least $49,000 a year to have be able to cover room and board and home and food and all that stuff. And it said recommended household income for a 2-bedroom apartment is over $61,000 a year. So like that 35 grand wasn't holding it together for whoever was asking for it. They were not able to sustainably live where they worked on that salary. And so he boosted it up to minimum 70, which it said on there for a 2-bedroom apartment, 70,000 in Seattle. With that, that's kind of where. So the question is whether or not this company just folded under that new financial stress, and it sounds like they're doing just fine.
Yeah. Now think of it this way. This says right here they were making profits of $2.2 million. So that's after they paid out all their debts, everything like that. They were making $2.2 million. So that's pure profit. Now, if you reinvest that in the company, you don't have to pay taxes on it, which is what a lot of companies do. I don't agree with that per se, but that's what they do. That's what a lot of companies do, right? So you're taking your $2.2 million, reinvesting it inside of your company. I told you it's $10.5 million roughly. That's 5 years, less than 5 years. If he did it without selling anything, without taking a pay cut, without doing any of that, he could do that. Now, if he was paying himself $1 million a year and cut his salary down to $75,000 a year, he's now almost saving another $1 million. So now you have $3.2 million in profit that you can spend reinvesting in your employees. Now you're driving down to 3.5 years before you want you to build up. So every year you can do 33% roughly of your employees. You could do that.
And then the other thing is, it's just like the Costco model. If you pay your employees well, you have a surprising boost in productivity. Let's say your company is working better. You got to hire more people. You start making more money. This is the idea of investing in infrastructure to grow a system as opposed to complaining about the cost of the infrastructure, which is what all of our friends at FEE like to do.
Which is kind of draws back to what I was saying earlier, talking about the extended unemployment. Is people are a lot less stressed. They lead better lives all around. They're going to be more valuable employees because they'll actually kind of want to be there because they'll feel like they're valued and respected.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Now he claims this is a business strategy rather than, not a business strategy, but a moral imperative, right? And we could go into his background. He was raised uber Christian, blah 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 blah. He, his father was a man or self-made man. They never were really rich, yada yada yada. So, if you think about it, though, what this does for him though is allow him to take the high road as well as make money. And I guess if it fails, he's always got his life savings, all of that to fall back on, in that investment. So then I found an article to see how are they doing now. And essentially, I don't know who all these people are, but essentially, they're still doing good. His profits not only are doubled in that time, the volume of transactions grew.
Yeah, it went from one to
hire
two.
More people grew.
Yeah.
Now he's also claiming that I don't, whatever, 50 more babies were born. I think this is ridiculous. I don't care about that. We should still, anyway.
Well, when we talked about health, like when you're not stressed out, like just fried on every end, you have families. You are healthier.
Yep. Employees lost weight. They started to eliminate death. People started contributing 401k.
Yeah. That's awesome.
10% were able to buy a house in the company's homeland in Seattle, one of the most expensive things. So it's done good things for people. And his company did not suffer from that. But the core behind that is because they were not taking out loans or stretching themselves thin and banking that they would make the money back. They were taking their current spend model and saying, we're only going to spend on this to create.
Yeah, so everyone doesn't have to go to 70. You have to go to what the company can absorb and not stretch it out so that you're basically killing it.
They also got through COVID. They had to take a 50% pay cut for most of them.
Whoa.
But, get this, as of March, essentially he said that he's going to be paying back all the employees' lost wages, and they've currently increased their wages back to normal.
Cool.
Wow. And they're going to pay all that back pay as the company makes money again. So this is a smaller company on average, but like I would love to see somebody in a big company say, let's see if this is scalable, because this is a pretty cool business model. I don't know. I like it. Take the dude away from the picture. I like this business model. I like the investment in the people. I like trying to grow the company and grow productivity and health at the same time. This is interesting. I read the story a long time ago. I thought it was cool. I'm glad it's going well. Yeah. And for me, that was a big thing because when we talk about, we started the episode out, right, having a conversation about wages and what it will do for companies and all these other things and minimum wage and changing that. And here we have a perfect example of how this worked. Now, again, this is in the financial district. This is a techie type company. So there's a little bit of concern there. There's a different market. But I'll tell you what, I don't need 17 fast food options in one town in any way, shape, or form. And I'll tell you what, in Zealand, when we eat out in Zealand, typically we eat local, like in our own city. I do.
One thing that's really nice.
We don't go to McDonald's very often. I spend a little bit more on the local pizza joint that is there. There's a burger place that my diet says you should never eat here. Because of the amount, it's like 50 style food. But
why does this burger taste so good? It's 50% butter.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? We're gonna stay away from that because when I was doing my smoker thing, I was looking up chicken recipes because I wanted a different spice to put on, and I found this competition cooking one, and I was like, "Oh, this is kind of cool. I'm gonna watch this." And the guy injected butter into the chicken. He then started smoking the chicken, moved it to the grill, and put a bucket of butter on top of it. I'm like, what the? Who eats
Yeah,
this?
they have 1 gallon buckets of butter with the big brush. That's what they just.
Ew. And I thought I was being bad because I had a little bit of olive oil, apple cider vinegar, and water to spray mine with. But oh man, I don't feel that bad now. I was like, oh, those 15 calories. Don't worry about that, Chris. Somebody's putting butter.
Stick to the olive oil. The Mediterranean diet will keep you alive.
Oh my god. Well, we've been eating olive oil for a long time. I'm a big olive oil proponent. I actually have 2 types of olive oil in my house at almost all times. Because there's a difference between virgin, like extra virgin, and full flavor. And I like full flavor better than anything else. But
there's a place right down the street, about 4 or 5 miles from here, that it's called the Olive Scene. They make their own olive oil. It's like real, fresh, legit olive oil. It's so good. And then my grandparents sent me a bottle of olive oil and balsamic vinegar from Arizona. That was the only place in the country that grows their olives and their own olives and presses them. I guess it's like a rare thing. Most people buy olives and then they make olive oil that way. This place actually grows them and presses them. And dude, this is some good stuff. It's so fresh. It tastes so different when it's like so fresh like that.
All right. As we round the show out, go ahead, buddy.
Oh, I was just saying, good to know.
I'll tell you what you should be saying, buddy, is you're going to trade him a bottle of maple syrup for a bottle of his olive oil. And that's what you guys should be doing right now.
I have a friend whose family owns a farm in Lebanon that makes olive oil. So,
Ooh.
All right, so you don't need our olive oil. Got it. We're good. Thanks, buddy. Way to be a downer on the show, man.
I didn't want to falsely advertise.
Anyway, so your quick save today.
My quick save. So because we're still, doing the whole we need to stay home more often thing, I'm sure a lot of us have burned through everything on our Netflix or video games or books or whatever. And sometimes we just need something that's fun and ridiculous. This is from Team 4-Star. This is by far one of my favorite series on the internet. It is called Dragon Ball Z Abridged. Now, unfortunately, Team 4-Star did have to kind of pull the plug on any new projects because the amount of work that went into it, and they had the studios had gone after them a couple of times for it, even though they went out of their way to make sure that nothing that they did violated it. And they explicitly opened every episode by saying, please support the official release. This is a fan-made parody. It is absolutely amazing. If you liked Dragon Ball Z growing up, this is a condensed, literally they take about 10 episodes and condense it into 10 minutes worth of story, because anybody who likes anime knows that there's a lot of talking and world building and exposition and all of that, which I didn't find out for a couple of years. So I didn't understand what the hell was going on with anime, and I didn't understand why it took 2 weeks to charge up a friggin' attack on Namek. Anyways, they rolled it up really nicely, and they did, of course, characterize the characters. Goku is a complete idiot, but that's not really a far stretch from the main series. Vegeta's a narcissist, which isn't a stretch from the main series. But anyways, so if you really liked Dragon Ball Z, I can't tell you enough. Check out Dragon Ball Z Bridge. It's funnier than hell. They at least get from, the Saiyan saga up until they finish the Cell saga. And the way they wrap that up is just absolutely incredible. So if that's your Jimmy Jam and you're looking to kill a couple of hours, you could burn through all 60 episodes of that.
Your head might explode and your hair will turn yellow.
I don't know. I went ahead and marked it so I can watch at least 1 or 2 of them tomorrow while I'm working. All right, Hannah's.
Just hit play.
Wow.
The end of it is the best. Oh man, my pet Mitch Hitch. He when you come in to visit him, he does that, and people walking by think we're murdering an animal or killing a small child. It's just he is the craziest, noisy, squealy, yelly, howly monster. And the girls get him hyped up. I get him hyped up. We get home, and it's just this howling mess. And then that husky, though, like, sometimes those dogs are so vocal. It's like if you isolate that, it's like someone doing like vocal warm ups before they go out on stage. Like it's just I was just listening to just late at night and just like flicking through, and it was just so wholesome and organic. I was like, that's just a nice moment. I'm gonna turn the internet off, and that's enough eye bleach for the night. I just rinse all the nasty off and go to bed. And it's just a nice fun video.
I love huskies. I love their attitude.
Well, my quick save is not as fun as your guys' I guess.
Why is there a woman eating a hand? Never mind.
No.
Because sometimes your tummy is making the rumblies that only hands can satisfy.
All right.
Advertising.
Ignore these over here. We're doing this. The Alabama is trying to uphold a ban on school yoga over fear of Hinduism.
I know.
Crazy, right?
My child said namaste. I have to take them to church.
Yeah.
But I thought cancel culture was bad.
Not when it's according to your religion, I guess. And it's funny because yoga has transcended a lot farther than that religion. You don't need to be a Hindu to practice yoga. And I'm not going to say I always practice yoga, but I have in the past, especially when I have panic attacks. I typically will spend the next week doing meditation exercises because I don't want a reoccurring issue. Or if I have a really bad nightmare about snakes, which I seem to have at least once a week, I then need to use some things to calm down, sometimes at 4 a.m. in the morning. And it's not really that good to smoke a bunch of weed or to have a drink, then go back to bed at 4 a.m. in the morning when you got to get up in 2 hours, you know? So meditation does work. And it's funny because why these people want to ban yoga, and there you go, namaste, is the silliest reason and thing I've ever heard of. And
I don't know what this is. I assume it's bad. I live in a tiny, tiny little bubble, and this came from a place that has majority brown people. We're gonna keep it from coming anywhere near our kids. It's
yeah, and how many Hindus honestly are in the U.S.? Right? I mean, it can't be that high.
It's very, very low. It's like the Jewish community, I think, is like 5%, and then it's just like 70 Christianity. It's just a massive, massive majority as far as the people who say they are religious.
It's less
and that
than
number's
1%.
Getting smaller. But like, is it what?
It's less than 1%.
For Hindus, yeah, it's a tiny, like
0.2%.
Hindus, Buddhists, Jainists, all those guys. It's just like there's no way it's anywhere near even 1%. It's so little. So I mean, they're just it's the bubble. It's the intellectual bubble. If you can keep anything from outside the bubble coming into your bubble, you can hold their soft brains until they get big enough to you can put the red hat on top.
Exactly.
I
just find it a funny endeavor because
the secular podcast that I listen to, I've been hearing this for a while. Oh, all right then. I've been hearing about that for a while, and it's always made me laugh because it just exposes how unaware these the white Christian conservatives are of other cultures and how oblivious they are. And oh my God, the fragility. Oh, it's absolutely unreal. But they're the original cancel culture. They just get upset and go, oh, it's cancel culture. It's just cancel culture. It's crazy.
They can't burn the yoga teacher in the town square anymore.
Exactly. They can't have them blacklisted. They can't run them out of town. They can't bully or otherwise corral them into complacency or just get rid of them altogether. And it's fucking hilarious to watch them lose their shit over something as simple as sitting and stretching And I know that there's valid criticisms of yogic practices and all of that, but I mean,
What are we gonna do now, boo boo?
if you could teach kids to sit still
Oh, dude,
and
bring it on.
not loud,
Ugh.
why wouldn't you want this? Why wouldn't you be saying we need to make this mandatory? Don't chase it out of town. Ugh.
I don't know. I agree with you, man. With that being said, we're going to end the show tonight. It's been a very good night. We'll be back next week with another amazing episode of Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all for joining us. And please make sure you click the like button below, the subscribe button that I can't point to because I don't know where the hell it is on my screen, and ensure that you're telling your friends about us. Thanks, and have a good night.